I'm Dario Bard with the Global Post Confederation. Today we're speaking to Vishal Vijay, Head of Business Development at Agrocorp International. Agrocorp is an agri-trading house and distribution firm established in Singapore in 1990. The company is also a GPC Gold Level partner. And Vishal, on behalf of all of us at the GPC, we thank you for supporting our work. Vishal, to get started, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you got your start in the pulse business.
Well, Agrocorp is a family. It's a family business started by my dad in 1990, as you've alluded to. So pulses has been a part of my growing up, and it's always been something that I've heard about, and in some of the Dad used to always bring a lot of work home as well. So definitely a strong part of my childhood and my growing up. And obviously I've been a part of the company for the last 5 years now, and that's where I've really gotten involved in the pulses business.
And I read somewhere that you were you're a graduate of Cornell University School of Engineering. Is that right? And
yeah. I'd gone to Cornell for my undergrad. Did the engineering program over there. It was really tough. Spent 3 years there, and then after that, I worked in a startup in Silicon Valley that was developing batteries for electric vehicles. So very, very different from pulses. But I do get to use some of my engineering background today when we look at some of our plant designs and some of our some of the plans that we have for expansion at some of our facilities, as well as new projects. So a little bit of that comes in handy. But yeah, pulses is very, very different from engineering.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the company. Give us an overview of the company's Agrocorp's pulse business.
Sure. So I'll start with the company as a whole first. So the company, this is our 30th year of operation, headquartered in Singapore. We have about 500 people around the world in about 20 countries right now. We are involved in quite a number of businesses alongside pulses. Our business model is essentially to source food and agri-commodities as close to the farmer as possible and ship it as close to the end consumer as possible. A lot of the product that we source comes from the large agricultural exporting economies, such as Canada, the US, Russia, Ukraine, Australia, and we're delivering into our customer base in the population dense importing countries of the world, food importing countries of the world. So this would be India, Bangladesh, China, Turkey, as well as parts of Southeast Asia. And we're involved across commodity classes such as wheat, sugar, edible nuts, cotton, as well as oilseed, in addition to what we do in pulses. In pulses, the company started doing pulses almost at the time of its inception, and pulses is a key business vertical for the company. We are, over the last 3 years, we've consistently moved more than 1 million tons of pulses every year, which makes us one of the largest movers of pulses in the world. And we've also got a fairly integrated business in pulses as well. We've got processing plants in Canada and Australia that allow us to source the grain from farmers and do a little bit of value-added processing there. We've got mills in India that further value-add the pulses and package it into a retail product. We've also got a protein extraction plant in Canada converts pulses into food ingredients such as starch and protein, which we then sell to food manufacturers. So this kind of summarizes our business model in pulses. In Australia as well, I mean, sorry, one aspect that I forgot to mention. In Australia, we also do, in Australia and Canada, actually, we do seed as well. So we accumulate seed and we sell it to the farmer ahead of the planting season.
And Vishal, could you tell us a little about Singapore's role in the pulse trade?
So Singapore is a global center of trade, and this is something that was established in the early 1800s when modern Singapore was founded by the British. So I think it's from that legacy that Singapore has assumed a very central role in the global pulses trade. So we've got a number of companies, ourselves included, that have significant operations in Singapore. It provides a good vantage point to be able to direct trade flows from the sourcing countries into the countries that procure the product. Obviously, Singapore is great in terms of being a center where trade finance is easily available, as well as other trading infrastructure. So that's kind of why it's built itself up to be one of the centers of the global pulses trade.
And so, as head of business development for such a large and internationally involved company, what would you say is the best part of your job?
Well, I think the best part about the job is that you get to see the various aspects of the business. I get involved in the bread and butter activities, which involve developing new customer relationships for sale of pulses. But at the same time, I also get involved in some of the new business verticals and directions that we're trying to pursue, such as the plant protein business that we started over the last 12 months. So it's a bit of I think my role involves a lot of the old, but also dabbling in a lot of the new as well. So it keeps things very interesting.
And on the personal side, Vishal, outside of work, what do you like to do for fun, or is there a special hobby you have, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the back, all the hobbies have had to go out the window over the last 3 months, right? I do like playing sport. I like playing a lot of tennis, so that keeps me going. I have a young family as well, which keeps me on my toes too. And yeah, when you do end up spending a lot of time in the office. So the key is to make sure that that you have colleagues that you can have good interactions with, and have a bit of fun in the office too. So we try and keep that vibe a bit in the office.
And Vishal, what have you found to be the most rewarding part of being in the pulse business?
I think in the last few years, the nutritional angle of pulses has been something that's really gained a lot of prominence. It started with the UN Year of Pulses in 2016, I believe. And I think the GPC did a really good job with getting that process started and bringing it to fruition. Because once that started, I think there's been a lot of good momentum with regards to really conveying. I think earlier on, the role of pulses was essentially for the angle of it being a staple product into Asia. But now, it's really talked about as an essential product that everyone should have as part of their diet, because of its nutritional and fiber-rich properties, that protein and fiber-rich properties that is something that everyone should benefit from. So I think that's something that adds a lot of value to what we do, and makes the job that much more rewarding. In line with this, we've actually, because of that, we've actually rebranded ourselves a bit in the last year or so. We've changed our tagline to "Nourishing a Changing World," and the nourishing angle comes from the fact that we do so much in pulses, and we believe very strongly that pulses is something that everyone should have as part of their diet, and as a result, we are committed to supplying pulses to every corner of the world in which there's an interest. And we try, and in my role in particular, we try and build, we try and convince consumers that haven't necessarily looked at pulses in the past to strongly consider it as part of their product formulations or as part of their diets going forward. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we did our first sale of lentils, Canadian red lentils, into South Korea, which is, a non-traditional market. First time we've ever done that business. But when you do something like that, that adds a little bit more fulfillment into the role.
How about any trends you're seeing in the industry, Vishal, that you're particularly excited about?
I think the plant protein trend is something that's here to stay. It's a very, very strong and visible trend that we're seeing. I mean, there've been some illustrious brands that have done really well, such as Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, that create their product on the back of plant protein. Impossible obviously does it from soy protein, but Beyond Meat, their building block is pea protein. And I think these companies have been trailblazers, but there are a lot of new companies, a lot of interesting products that are coming into this space, and it's something that we're going to see growing. I think also on the back of this pandemic that we're in, I think that is going to accelerate a little bit of that growth, because I think there's been an increased level of awareness from hygiene issues in the meat industry, which I think so I think obviously meat consumption is going to still be there, right? It's not going to completely go away, but I think you're just going to see a little bit more of a pivot of consumers to consuming more plant protein than they have in the past. And I think that is going to be extremely beneficial for our industry as a whole. As a focused area of the company, while we've got the bedrock of our business, which is the pulses trade that we're already doing, and we're trying to expand in. We're also trying to do. We've gotten into protein extraction, and we've already got one plant in Canada. And we're trying to see if we can set up a few more in various parts of the world. And we're also dabbling in value added. I mean, in consumer products that use plant protein. As well, and we've set up our food lab in Singapore to develop some of that. So we're hopeful that some of these products will come to market in the next 6 to 12 months. I believe, Dario, you'd done a little snippet of what we were developing and posted on Twitter as well during Gulf Food. So those are some of the things that we're kind of developing, and everything that we're doing is to leverage off of existing food trends. Right, so that's kind of where the trend is important.
I remember that very well. I thought it was a very neat thing you showed me at Gulf Food. Why don't you talk a little bit about it? It was an egg product, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
One was the paneer, which we actually we conducted a tasting session during Gulf Food. We actually had a few people visit our booth and try it out to give us some feedback. So the paneer is an Indian cottage cheese that's very common in cooking in India and South Asia, and we've managed to recreate the product using pea protein as opposed to any dairy. So that's something that we're really excited about, and we hope that we can bring it to market fairly soon. We've also developed an egg replacement that's a little bit further away. We've had some successful lab trials for that, and we're hopeful that is something that that we can also bring to market fairly soon. Very excited with both products. We think there's a big market there, but obviously, we're spending time to ensure that the product, we get it right, because we don't want to. My theory is that if you're not at least 80% there in terms of being a like-for-like substitute with the incumbent, then it's going to be very difficult for consumers to come on board. If you're 80% there, then the last 20%, is you can leave it to sustainability, or you can leave that last 20% to the arguments of sustainability, veganism, non-dairy, these kind of things to fill that gap for you. But 80% has to be the product on its own merit. So that's kind of what we're working on. Before we can take it to.
Yeah, last question, and then we'll let you go. What advice do you have for someone just starting out in the pulse business?
I think the advice is to keep going. I'm honestly, I'm not one to give advice, because I've been in the industry only for a few years myself. I think people like my dad would be.
The experience is fresh.
Give advice, but for me, I can leverage off of what I've experienced so far. And I think for anyone starting out, especially if you're starting out in a company, so just keep going. To learn about the product, to not take big risk, to give yourself a little bit of a runway to get accustomed to all the intricacies of the business, because there are a lot of intricacies. And face value, Pulse's trade might be simple and looks easy enough. And that was the case for me, especially if you've got an engineering background and have dealt with far more complex equations and theories and stuff like that. Looking at pulses, it might seem really simple, but actually there's a lot of nuances, a lot of intricacies that you need to learn. You need to give yourself time to learn. So I think that's what I'd share with. That's the advice I'd give. But additionally, I think it's a great time to get into pulses. I think it's one of the very important food trends of our time, it's not too crowded a space. I think you should get involved if your business allows it to. And I would encourage that. I think this is a great space to be in.